Hey guys, learn an interesting story in 10 minutes. Today I'm going to talk about Moon Jae-in's revenge, May 23, 2009. For South Korea's former president Roh Moo-hyun, it was the end of the line. For Moon Jae-in, it was the darkest day of his life, and the moment he was swallowed by the relentless currents of history. Even years later, he couldn't shake the regret, the haunting thought that if he'd just done something, anything, things might have turned out differently. But the dead are gone, and the living must carry on. In a cruel twist of fate, destiny pushed Moon Jae-in back into the center of a storm. From humble beginnings to a glimmer of idealism, Moon Jae-in's early life was a canvas of poverty and chaos. His parents were refugees from the Korean War, scraping by in Busan. As a child, he was once kicked out of class because he couldn't pay his school fees, an indignity that left a deep scar. But poverty couldn't extinguish his thirst for knowledge. He was a bookworm, always with a stack of books in his bag, even when he traveled. In 1972, he enrolled at Kyung Hee University to study law. It was there that he had his first real brush with politics. The country's president, Park Chung-hee, had just launched the October Restoration, a military coup that established a dictatorship and trampled the constitution. For Moon and his fellow students, this was a line they couldn't let be crossed. They spent nights debating the political climate, ultimately deciding to join the protests, putting their bodies on the line against an iron-fisted regime. This stand changed everything for Moon Jae-in. He was arrested and expelled from school. His mother, heartbroken, visited him and asked, "Even if it's the right thing to do, why does it always have to be you?" At the time, he had no answer. But he would spend the rest of his life answering that very question. His unyielding commitment to justice became the foundation of his social conscience and set the stage for his future in politics. 2. Forged in fire. Special forces and a lawyer's awakening. After his release, Moon was drafted into the military. He was assigned to the 1st Special Forces Brigade, a unit known as a punishment assignment with a high death rate and a roster full of men with criminal records. Yet, the troublemaker student who had been kicked out of university thrived there. He excelled at shooting, running, and swimming, but it was his natural talent for parachuting and demolition that earned him multiple commendations as a top Special Forces soldier. The bitter irony. The man who gave him those awards was Chun Do-won, the very general who would later seize power in a military coup. In a bizarre twist of fate, Moon Jae-in's path was now intertwined with the presidency. After his service, Moon studied at the Judicial Research and Training Institute and became a lawyer. He turned down high-paying jobs at top law firms that served big corporations, wanting only to defend the little guy. It was during this period of uncertainty that he got an offer from another lawyer, a man named Roh Moo-hyun. That door he walked through not only started a friendship that would last for decades, but also completely changed the face of Korean politics. For a duo for justice lighting up the night in Busan. The first meeting between Moon Jae-in and Roh Moo-hyun was less a meeting and more a meeting of the minds. They sat in an office, each with a cup of tea, and talked for hours. They spoke of their experiences defending ordinary people and their days as student activists. Moon later wrote in his autobiography, "I quickly felt a sense of kinship with him. We had the same soul." Roh was upfront, telling him that being a lawyer wasn't easy, but they would be clean lawyers together. In that moment, their ideals merged, and the Roh Moo-hyun and Moon Jae-in joint law office was born. With a shared vision, they dedicated themselves to human rights law. They defended the wrongly accused and helped workers take on powerful corporations. These cases didn't pay much, but they filled them with pride. Soon, they became the top human rights lawyers in Busan. In the Burma case, they defended students for free, playing a pivotal role in South Korea's democratization and earning them widespread recognition. Their story was later immortalized in the film The Attorney, with Roh as the inspiration for the main character. Those years of fighting side by side were the most brilliant of Moon Jae-in's life. Political destiny. The curse of the Blue House in 1988, Roh Moo-hyun entered politics and was elected to the National Assembly. Moon, by contrast, preferred a quieter life and wanted to remain a private lawyer. He thought his political journey was over. But fate had other plans. 6 years later, when Roh decided to run for president, he came back to Moon asking for help to fulfill their shared political dreams. Moon couldn't say no to his best friend. He initially thought he would just help with the campaign and then step away once Roh won, but he underestimated the pull of the Blue House. Once you step inside, it's hard to ever leave. Roh saw Moon as his most trusted advisor. At a critical point in the campaign, almost everyone was telling Roh to accept an offer from a rival, Chung Mong-jun, to form a coalition government. Only Moon stood by his side. That trust and support gave Roh the confidence to make the right call, and he ended up winning the election in a stunning upset, even without Chung's support. The day the election results came in, Busan was buzzing. Moon walked the streets, surrounded by cheering crowds. He remembered all the years ago when he and Roh had marched on those same streets, dodging tear gas. Now, it was a sea of jubilation. It was the happiest day of Moon's life, and he wished he could freeze that moment forever. But joy is fleeting, and politics is a vicious game. When Roh became president, he immediately asked Moon to be his senior secretary for civil affairs. Moon hesitated, but ultimately chose to fight alongside his friend. Roh was a hard idealist who wanted to change everything. He pushed for American troops to leave Seoul, a shift to a self-reliant defense, and a tough stance on historical issues with Japan. He also went after the powerful chaebols, corporate conglomerates, demanding reforms and increasing oversight. By doing so, he made powerful enemies on all sides. Roh's 5 years in office were a constant battle. Moon was in and out of the Blue House 3 times, always supporting him from the shadows, earning him the nickname Roh Moo-hyun's shadow. When opponents tried to impeach Roh, Moon organized a team of lawyers and successfully got him reinstated. But one man's strength couldn't hold back the tide of history. Roh had grand ambitions, but both he and the Times had their limits. His idealism eventually became a tragic ballad. In 2008, after leaving office, both Roh and Moon retreated to the countryside, hoping for a quiet life. They thought they had finally escaped the noise and could grow old in peace. A tragic end, a vengeful beginning. Their peace didn't last. The new president, Lee Myung-bak, who represented the powerful chaebols that Roh had gone after, immediately began a political witch hunt. They started by investigating Roh's aides, then accused Roh of taking a copy of his presidential archives. Finally, they went after his family, alleging that his brother and wife had accepted bribes. While they never found proof that Roh himself was involved, the media firestorm was enough to destroy his reputation. The constant attacks and malicious rumors were too much to bear. Roh Moo-hyun chose to end his life. On May 23, 2009, Roh Moo-hyun jumped from Al Rock. In that moment, his body was gone, but his spirit emerged from the darkness and attached itself to Moon Jae-in. The death of his best friend was devastating, but Moon couldn't even grieve in private. He had to serve as the funeral chief mourner. At the funeral, Lee Myung-bak showed up, and an enraged politician yelled at him, "Justice! Revenge!" Yet Moon, as the host, had to apologize to Lee, saying, "We were out of line." It's hard to imagine the pain Moon felt, bowing his head while a fire of vengeance burned inside him. Lee Myung-bak had always criticized Roh for his family's corruption and slow economic growth. Ironically, Lee's own economy performed worse, and he was later convicted of taking 40 million in bribes. Roh's death completely changed Moon's life. He had wanted to fade away, but now he knew he had to stand up for his friend. In 2012, Moon re-entered politics, winning a seat in the National Assembly and immediately launching a presidential campaign against Park Geun-hye, the daughter of the very dictator Roh had fought against. Though he lost by a narrow margin, his resolve never wavered. In 2016, the Choi Soon-sil scandal erupted, revealing that Park Geun-hye's confidante had taken bribes from corporations and interfered in government affairs. The public was furious. That November, Moon Jae-in stood in Gwangwon Plaza, holding a candle with the protesting crowd. At 63, with grey hair, his eyes were still burning with a single purpose: revenge. "I'll be a river to meet you again." In 2017, Moon ran for president again and won by a landslide. Once in office, he carried a copy of Roh's suicide note in his pocket, a constant reminder of the weight of his mission. He didn't just get revenge for Roh, he carried on his political legacy. On May 23, 2017, Park Geun-hye stood trial. On May 23, 2018, Lee Myung-bak stood trial. Moon marked Roh's death anniversary by delivering a powerful message to history, the world, and his friend. he continued Roh's fight against the chaebols, taking on powerful figures in the Jangja, Yeon, and Burning Sun scandals. Politically, he was more pragmatic than Roh. He visited the graves of former presidents to seek cross-party cooperation and took decisive action to control the pandemic. Under his leadership, his party won a historic 60% of the seats in the National Assembly. A scholar would die for his kindred spirit. Moon Jae-in went into politics ready to die for his cause, and ended up carving out his own legacy. Roh Moo-hyun once said he hoped people would be like a river, coming together no matter the obstacles and flowing to the sea. At the end of his autobiography, Moon wrote, "I'll be a river to meet you again." This heartfelt promise was not just to Roh, but a reflection of his own life's journey. With his life's work, he defined what it means to have conviction, what it means to have a friendship, and what it means to be an idealist. He didn't just get revenge for his friend, he carried on his political legacy, giving hope to all who fight for justice and a better world.